Book 24 of 2019 was The Art of Creative Thinking by Rod Judkins. Just have to check, yeah, Rod Judkins. This is actually quite good, in the sense of there's about 82 chapters, very very short and snappy. I can imagine, like, I listened to it on audio, so I imagine like the book itself is just a couple of pages for each one, which is quite, you know, quite interesting. And what Rod Judkins says in the beginning is that you don't have to read it in a kind of linear fashion. At the end of each chapter there's a suggestion of, do you agree with this, go to this chapter. If you don't, go to this chapter. Or you could, you know, read it sequentially if you liked, which is a really interesting way of presenting the book, because that's how you think creatively, by jumping from one thing to another and kind of having cross-hemisphere connection and kind of connecting disparate things. That's where creativity comes from. It's not a logical, ordered kind of way of thinking. So I really, really liked that he kind of used that technique to structure the book, but left it, you know, I'm very need to have things in order, so I quite enjoyed like having that ability as well. But obviously because it's not on audio, it's a bit difficult to be able to do that. But I think the way that he's presented it is you could dip in and out of various things, and there are actually things that are grouped together that I think if I'd have followed, I mean, you could follow different paths throughout it, like, you know, no two readers would have the same path, you know, or very very small chance, given that there's 82 different, well, there's more, yeah, there's 82 different choices or 81 different choices, whatever, as you're going through it. It's really, really interesting because each kind of chapter is about someone who's been creative in some kind of way, and it's almost like getting like a lesson from each kind of example, and a few of the examples are kind of getting a similar lesson from them, so it kind of like builds up like kind of groups of things, which I found quite interesting. I'm trying to think actually what they were. Let's just see what I put. Oh yeah, it starts off talking about how like people always think that they're not creative. Like, I don't know where this comes from. Like, I'm a really creative person. Like, I love creating things. I love writing. I love making these. I love taking photographs. I love painting. I love drawing. Maybe not so much painting because I'm not really that good. I like drawing. I like kind of like knitting and like creating like embroidery stuff. Like, I love creating stuff because it just feels good. And when I was younger I used to do lots of crafts, like, you know, making cards and like all kinds of stuff, because, you know, it's just escape for hours, isn't it? And it's just a way of expressing yourself in some kind of way. But a lot of people just don't think, in fact that reminds me, there's something here. So this was something that I created, so it looks ugly as, but you know, it took me so long to make. So I wired, these are all wire, and you like thread all the beads through and put it round, and then now it looks like a lovely candle holder. Totally random, but you know, it's something creative to do. Oh, and here's something else that's even uglier. I made this in a ceramics class. It's supposed to be a vase. As you can see, this is probably one of the first ones that I did because it's so horrific. But again, something that I created, and I'm not even in my room. Like, this is like a random room in my house that my mum stored with like stuff. So, so yeah, like, I'm really creative. But the things that I create aren't great. Like, the purpose of being creative is not to have something amazing. I think we get conditioned in our society that unless it's good, you shouldn't be doing it. And it's like, well, no, that's not the purpose of being creative. The purpose of creation is just to create something. And, you know, sometimes what you create is crap, but that's fine. Like, it's the process of creating it that's enjoyable, not the end product. And I think we get so focused in life on the end goal, the end product, that we never enjoy the process of something. And I think, you know, people who are like, oh, I can't draw, well, probably not, no, because you haven't done it. Like, you've got to practice and do it loads to get better at it. You know, like playing an instrument, like, people just think, oh no, I can't play it. Well, you haven't done it, so like, how are you going to get better at it? And one of the actual things in the book that Judkins says is that, you know, people that are really, really creative do 100 paintings. Like, Picasso did hundreds of thousands, maybe thousands, I can't remember what it was, but he did hundreds of paintings. They weren't all great. Like, you just get an odd one that's good. And it's similar, like, you know, you write novels, they're not all going to be great, but one will be good. And it's like, if you are prolific in your output, then you're going to get something good eventually, and that really shouldn't be your aim anyway. Like, the aim should be to just enjoy the process, enjoy the creativity. So that was one of the things that he was talking about. He was suggesting as well that like the fear of judgment paralyses us from being creative. It's like if you didn't care about what other people said or whatever, you would be more creative. Like, you know, you could take yourself off into your room and draw something and not show anybody, but then I guess you'd be judging yourself, wouldn't you? If you get out of that self-judgment and you're just kind of a bit more kind and loving to yourself, then you probably would be a really creative person, and you would find as well that you would connect more things in your brain that you know, so that you would be better at everything else that you do in life, like your job and stuff like that. You'll be more, you know, efficient and better at your job because you've been creative with how you do your job. You know, for me, like, I teach, and because I'm creative, I kind of like do games and stuff in my lessons that are, you know, for example, taking like beer pong and changing it a little bit so that I can use it in a teaching setting, so it's enjoyable, and yet I'm still questioning them on the topic that I'm teaching. So it's like little things like that you can't do if you have no belief in your creativity, whereas if you think you're a creative person, you can, you know, do whatever. He kind of like says things like, you know, everything's already been done, so if you want to be creative, just borrow somebody else's idea and like take it one step further. And he says, being creative is a way of thinking in the terms of you deconstruct things and then you mix it up and do it differently. Like, why do you have to do it the way that it's always been done? Why can't you do it a different way? And I find this kind of like, when I got a new job recently, and the way things were being done, I was like, this is just not a good way of doing it. Like, this should be done, this should be done, and this should be done. Like, let's change it. So I'm very quick to like, this isn't working, let's try something different. What's the point of doing it if it doesn't work very well? Like, if you can see it's not working very well, then change it. Like, try something else. And it might not work the next time round either, but keep trying until you find something that's better. Like, don't just accept something that's mediocre. Like, do something about it, change it, make it better. Be creative, think of different ways to do it. You know, like, what is stopping you really? And it was saying as well, like, find something that you're really, really passionate about and get creative in that passion, and do it for you and for the enjoyment of it. You know, it was talking about how there was this physicist, and he really, really enjoyed this area of physics. I think it's about black holes and stuff, and he had a class and he had to travel really, really far to go to this class to teach it. And he had the lowest turnout ever. There was only 2 students that enrolled on the course, and he went anywhere because it was something that he was really passionate about and that he really loved. And he went, I think it was every week, and he taught, and they, you know, bounced ideas off each other's and engaged in it and whatever. And both students got the Nobel Prize in physics after having that kind of, you know, teaching session with this lecturer, and then he also got a Nobel Prize. So because of, you know, doing something for the pure enjoyment of it and not the end goal, and not thinking, oh well, everyone's going to judge me because that class has got a low turnout, I'll cancel it, what's the point of doing it or whatever. They just did it anyway because they enjoyed it and they loved it. I think a lot of people, they always have like a goal that they're aiming for, and what they don't realise is that that goal restricts creativity. There's a lot of writers that start off writing not having a clue where they're going to go, but in finding that journey they create some kind of brilliant masterpiece. You know, when somebody starts painting, they don't really know what they're painting until they get to the end. So, you know, having the kind of logical, this is the goal, this is what I'm doing, whatever, it blindsides you to any creative thinking, to any kind of different ways of doing things. You kind of just stuck in that kind of, you know, that's what's happening. You know, there is the opposite, which is where if you don't have a goal or whatever, you won't get anywhere. But then life's creative, it's a learning process. It shouldn't just be about like blinkered vision towards something, because you'll lose out on a lot of the richness that, you know, creative thinking can bring. So it's kind of supporting that. I mean, you had a quote in it that people clap for the wrong things. You will get people that will judge your art in a negative way. So it gave loads of examples of books that are really famous, like J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter was like rejected like 20 times before it got, 11 times before it got published. Like, imagine the world without Harry Potter, like, and loads of people didn't think that was good. And it's like, if you read the first Harry Potter, it's amazing. Like, it was like randomly on the side, like in my kitchen like a couple of years ago, and I'd already read them like a couple of times, and I just randomly picked it up because I always pick books up and start reading them when I'm supposed to be doing something else, and then I couldn't put it down there. I had to finish it, and I had to read all the other ones, and it was like, oh, I should not pick that up. But it was really good, but yet people didn't like it. So it's almost like, you know, if you like, there's another one of no, that's a completely different. I'll come back to that. So yeah, so you know, do your art and don't care about what other people think about it. Like, if you're passionate about it and you love it, do it. You know, I find this a lot. Like, if I put like a blog on or something, there's always negative comments from somebody. There's always someone that has a problem with it or whatever, and you just like bog off. Like, do you know what I mean? I enjoy it. I'm getting something out of it. I don't really care if you like it or not. Like, it's there, you want to watch it, you want to read my stuff, whatever, great. If you don't, I don't really care. Don't put a negative comment on my blogs. Like, I don't want to see that shit. So yeah, like, I don't really care what you think. So don't put that in my face. No one has actually done that like recently because they've been cut off well and truly. But yeah, it just reminded me of it then and got me a little bit like red up. Another thing was that, you know, the guy who designed Dyson, like, I read this in another, like, I think it was like a Gladwell book or Saeed book, because they write a lot about like things like this. He'd done about 1,000 different variants of that Dyson Cyclone Hoover, and then when he actually designed it and it worked and he took it to places to sell, like vacuum cleaner places, they rejected it and didn't want it, and yet he's like revolutionised the whole vacuum cleaning like sector because it's actually amazing technology, and he just kind of, you know, continued and continued and continued until he got there. And it's almost like, you know, if you give up too early, you'll never achieve like mastery in anything. So it's kind of like almost like reinforcing that. And then it was also saying like, when you are creative, like, self-doubt keeps us diligent, keeps us trying to be better, and, you know, like, it's normal to have that, but don't let that stop you from being creative. So it was, whilst I was reading it, I was getting really inspired and really kind of like thinking of, you know, different things that I could do, and it was quite motivating in that sense. But because of my preference, what I like to get out of books, I like to be intellectually stimulated and challenged, and it was a little bit like a story about all these creative people and how you should be more creative and whatever. But I think as being quite a creative person anyway, it was kind of like, well, yeah, like I get this. So so if you think that you're not creative, you definitely need to listen or read this book, because it will challenge that preconception that you've got, and maybe, you know, give you an avenue to express yourself, which you've been neglecting for quite a long time. You know, if you think of children when they're very young, very creative, they don't give a crap about whether you like their drawing or not. Like, they will draw you a massive head face with legs and arms, and they think it's amazing. You know, it's that self-consciousness that comes from other people's judgments when we were growing up, and it's like, if you get rid of those, get rid of that internal, you know, you've internalised that voice, get rid of that voice, then you have an outlook there to kind of get inspired and get passionate about something, and bring great stuff to the world. Like, you know, if you think of our culture, it's enriched by creative people. We need creative people. So if we can, and I'm saying creative people, we're all creative, but a lot of us are kind of neglecting that in ourselves. So I suppose it's good for that sense. Yeah.